Hello friends, welcome back to this online lecture series on earthquake resistant design of structures. Now, as you all know, we have started with the numericals regarding this subject, and in the previous lecture, we have seen the calculation of lateral load subjected on the building, right? And in that, we have seen that how the lateral load is going to be distributed along the height of the building, and also how the stiffness is going to affect the distribution of lateral loads when it is going to be a case of major axis and minor axis, right? In today's lecture, we are going to discuss further regarding the different methods of lateral load calculation, and as we have discussed in our lecture series, the two basic types of methods of analysis that we have discussed. First method is the seismic coefficient method, second is the response spectrum method, right? So today's example is going to focus on the calculation of lateral load based on the seismic coefficient method. So let us start with today's example, where the data is given to you as that the plan and elevation of a 3-story school building, that is RCC school building, is shown in the figure, right? The dead load or the intensity of the dead load on the floor is 12 kilonewton per meter square, which is inclusive of the weight of the slab, beams, columns and the walls. The imposed load that is expected to be on the floor is 4 kilonewton per meter square, right? The building is located in zone 4 and the soil type encountered on the site is medium type of soil. So lastly, it is saying that determine the seismic forces and the shears at each floor level using the static coefficient method or the seismic coefficient method, considering the building to be designed as a special moment resisting frame building, right? So if you look at the figure, then the figure is showing that the plan area is 8 meters by 10 meters, that is the width of the building in x direction is 8 meters and the length of the building in the z direction is 10 meters, right? And along with that, the height of the building is shown as G+2 building, where the height of each floor is 3 meters, right? So the elevation is also there, the plan is also there, right? Now as you can see in the elevation, the direction of the earthquake force is shown from left to right direction, that is we are going to consider, or we are going to do the calculation when the earthquake force is going to act in the x direction. Similar type of calculation can be done in z direction also, right? Now these two direction calculations have to be done when the dimensions of the building in both the direction is different, that is if the building is of rectangular geometry or any other geometry where the dimension in the x direction and the z direction are differing, then in that case you need to do the calculation in both the direction. However, if the geometry or the configuration of the building is such that in both the directions the plan dimension is same, then in that case in both the directions the earthquake force is going to be applied same. And when the earthquake force is going to be applied same, then as a result of that, if you do calculation in any one direction, then it is going to be okay. However, here specifically the direction is shown, so we are going to do the calculation accordingly. If the direction is not shown, then as a result of that you need to calculate in both the directions and apply the load accordingly, right? I hope this thing is clear to you, because it is important from the exam point of view also and in real practice also, that you need to calculate the earthquake forces in both the directions, right? Now if we look at the data that is given to us, then from the data itself we'll be able to conclude, or we will be able to make out some very important points that we need to keep in mind for solving this example, where the first word that is being used, that the building is a school building. So when the building is a school building, so basically I can say that it is going to come under the category of public buildings, right? And in case of public buildings, one thing that is important is that the service life of the structure should be more as compared to that of the regular structure. So as a result of that, we know that the IS code, that is IS 1893-2016, is suggesting that whenever the building is a type of important building, or it is a public building such as school building, college building or hospital building, then the importance factor of such building shall be considered as 1.5, right? So the first word, that is the school building, is giving you an idea about what is the value of importance factor that you need to consider. Second, the value of dead load is given as 12 kilonewton per meter square, which is inclusive of weight of all the elements, right? Then the third thing is the value of imposed load, that is 4 kilonewton per meter square. So again, in case of imposed load also, we have seen that for the calculation of seismic weight, the definition is given as full dead load plus percentage of imposed load, and for percentage of imposed load the criteria is given that if the value is less than 3 kilonewton per meter square, then 25% is to be considered, and if the value is greater than 3 kilonewton per meter square, then the percentage is to be considered as 0.5%. So here in this case we can see that the value of live load is given as 4 kilonewton per meter square. Therefore our imposed load percentage will be 50% of the actual value. Then the type of soil is given as medium soil. So type of soil is going to help us where you need to decide the time period and the SI by G value. So at that particular junction we need to refer the table. Again we have to keep in mind that we are going to calculate as per the static analysis. So IS 1893-2016 is giving different values for static analysis and dynamic analysis. So you need to go to static analysis. In that you need to go to this particular clause of medium soil where corresponding to the value of SI by G, that is you will get the SI by G value and the time period value, right? So that thing also has to be kept in mind. Lastly, the type of frame, lateral load resisting frame is considered as special moment resisting frame. And in case of special moment resisting frame, we have seen that whichever frame is going to be detailed as per the clauses of IS 13920, that particular type of system will be known as the special moment resisting frame system. And when special moment resisting frame system is there, then IS 1893-2016 is telling that the response reduction factor for that particular type of frame should be taken as R equal to 5. So wherever this frame type is mentioned, that is also going to help us decide the response reduction factor only, right? So you can see that in this paragraph of the data that is given to us, some very key points are highlighted, based on which you will be able to decide the seismic parameters based on given in IS 1893 and IS 13920, right? So understanding of these parameters are very important, based on which the calculation will start. If these things are not kept in mind, then the entire calculation is going to be wrong, because if you are going to select the parameter wrong or the value of the parameter wrong, then basically your sum is not going to be correct, right? And lastly, the floor area is given, that is 10 into 80 is the 80 meter square. So let us start with the first step, that is the calculation of lumped mass at each floors, right? So what we need to do is we need to find out the weight that is going to be there on each floors, right? So intensity of the dead load is given as 12 kilonewton per meter square. So I am going to find the values at two levels. First is the roof level and second is the floor level. So first, if I talk about the typical floor level, then I can say that 80 meter square is my floor area, right? 12 kilonewton per meter square is the value of the dead load that is given to me. So basically 80 into 12 is going to give me a value of 960 kilonewton. So the lumped mass on each floor is going to be 960 kilonewton, that is on the ground floor as well as the first floor. When I come to the part of roof, then in case of roof also the value is going to be same, because area is also going to be same and dead load is going to be fully considered for terrace also. So 80 into 12 is going to be 960 kilonewton again, right? So this is how we have calculated the lumped mass on each floor based on the dead load value. Then next is the consideration for imposed load, and for imposed load the value is given as 4 kilonewton per meter square. So as we have discussed, IS 1893 is giving a criteria that if the value is greater than 3 kilonewton per meter square, then the percentage of imposed load has to be considered as 50% of its actual value, right? Now where this has to be considered? This has to be considered on the typical floors, but it has not to be considered on the terrace level or the roof level, right? That class we have already discussed in the last class, and this has to be remembered throughout the subject of earthquake engineering. So if I want to consider the effect of imposed load on the roof, then it will be 0. But if I want to consider the effect of imposed load on the floor level, then in that case I have to consider 50% of its actual value, right? So that is what I have shown, that live load on roof is going to be 0. Now this live load on roof in actual case is going to be there, but for calculation of earthquake forces this value has to be considered as 0. Don't get confused over there, right? In actual case the live load is always going to be there because the movement of the public is going to be there. So when you are going to design the slab, when you are going to design the beam, that is okay. There you have to consider dead load and live load, both the things. But for calculation of earthquake forces and seismic weight, the code is telling that in that case the live load on roof has to not be considered, right? Then we come to the part of live load or value consideration of imposed load on the floor level. So it is going to be 50%. So 0.5 into 4 is going to be 2 kilonewton per meter square, right? So based on that, if I substitute the value, then in that case I can say that the total live load on each floor is going to be 80 meter square into 2 kilonewton per meter square is equal to 160 kilonewton, right? So based on this I can say that now I have the value of dead load on each floor level and I also have the value of live load on each floor level. So if I do the summation, that is dead load plus live load, then I can say that the total lumped mass on the roof level, it is equal to dead load plus live load, that is equal to 960 plus 0, because the imposed load component is to be considered as 0 on the roof level. So that is why the total value on the roof is 960 kilonewton. And similarly, if I calculate the lumped mass on each floor, that is dead load plus live load, then it is going to be 960 plus 160, that is equal to 1120 kilonewtons per each floor, right? So on the ground floor you will have a value of 1120 kilonewton, on the first floor you will have a value of 1120 kilonewton, and on the top floor, that is the roof level, you will have a value of 960 kilonewton. So this is how the calculation of lump mass on each floor has to be done. Once this is calculated, then we go to the next step, that is step number 2. So in case of step number 2, we need to calculate the fundamental value of time period, right? And for time period, we have to consider the 3 equations that are given in code. First is the bare frame, second is the structural wall, and third is for all other buildings. So when it is a school building, we can assume that the masonry walls are going to be there, right? And since we are assuming that masonry walls are going to be there, then that means that the building is going to have infill walls. And when infill walls are present, that means out of the 3 formulas that are given to us, the third formula, that is all other buildings, will be applicable. That is why I have taken the formula of T is equal to 0.09 into H divided by under root of D, where H is the height of the building and D is the lateral dimension of the building, that is the maximum lateral dimension of the building in the direction in which the earthquake is being considered, right? So if I look at the dimension of the building, then as we know that in the x direction the total length of the building is 8 meters, and I am calculating the earthquake in x direction. That is why my value of D will be 8 meters. If I am going to calculate the earthquake in z direction, then in that case my value of D will be 10 meters, right? So since I am considering x direction, my value is going to be 8 meters. Next is the height. So in case of height, again we know that from the elevation that total 9 meters of height is shown, right? So that is why H is going to be 9, D is going to be 8. We substitute the value, and when you substitute the value in the equation 0.09 H under root of D, that you will get the answer as 0.286 seconds. That is the value of time period, right? So this is going to be the second step. Now coming to the third step, that is the design base shear, that is the value of VB. Now for the calculation of base shear, we have seen the formula that based on the seismic coefficient method, the formula to calculate the base shear is given by VB is equal to AH into W, where AH is the horizontal acceleration coefficient and W is the total seismic weight of the structure, right? So you can see that VB is equal to AH into W, and where W is the total seismic weight that we have calculated. So what is the total seismic weight that we calculated is 3200 kilonewton. Where did this value come from? Then as you can see over here, the total seismic weight of the building is 2 into 1120, that is 1120 for first floor, 1120 for second floor, and 960 for the roof level. So total value is 3200 kilonewton. That value becomes the value of W that we have calculated over here, right? So W is there. Now we want to find out HF. If we have the value of AH, then we can find out the value of base shear, right? So now again we go back to the clauses of IS 1893-2016. Then in that case we know that for the horizontal acceleration coefficient, the value is given as AH is equal to ZI SA by 2RG, where Z is the zone factor, I is the importance factor, SA by G is the response coefficient, and R is the response reduction factor, right? Now if I look at all these parameters closely, then I have been told that in the data that my building is located in zone 4. When the building is located in zone 4, so basically I have to go to the table that is given in IS 1893 and take the value of Z accordingly. So if you refer the table of IS 1893, then in that case you will know that for zone 4 the value of Z is given as 0.24. So my value of Z will be equal to 0.24 as per IS 1893. Importance factor, because it is a school building, it is a public building, so IS 1893 is telling that the value should be taken as 1.5. So I am taking the value of I equal to 1.5. R is the response reduction factor, where moment resisting frame only is there and it is going to be considered as an SMRF frame. So again you go to table number 5 and you refer the table, then in that case you will get the response reduction value as R equal to 5 from IS 1893. So R also equal to 5 that we will be getting. Last value is the value of SA by G, that is dependent on the time period. Time period value we have as 0.286. So we need to go to the table that is given in IS 1893 regarding the value of SA by G corresponding to medium soil and a value of 0.286. So when you go there, then you will get that for static analysis having medium soil and time period equal to 0.286, the value of SA by G will be equal to 2.5. Right? So that means basically we have all the parameters, Z equal to 0.24, I equal to 1.5, SA by G equal to 2.5 and R equal to 5. So when I substitute all these values, then the value of AH will be equal to 0.09. If I convert this value of 0.09 into percentage, then it is basically becoming 9%. So what does this indicate? That it indicates that the out of the total seismic weight that we have calculated, 9% of the seismic weight will be applied as a lateral load on this building in X direction, right? Again, Whenever you get the value of AH, it will be in terms of 0.09, 0.04, 0.06. So when you convert to percentage, you will get the percentage either as 4%, 6%, 8%, 11%. Here we are getting the value as 9%. So what does it indicate? It indicates that 9% of the total seismic weight will be applied as a lateral load on your building, right? So I can see that VB is equal to AH into W. So AH will be equal to 0.09. W is the seismic weight, that is 3200 kilonewton. Therefore the value of VB is equal to 288 kilonewton, right? So 288 kilonewton is the total load that is expected to act as a lateral load along the height of the building in X direction. That is what the term base shear is going to help us indicate, right? So I hope this definition or the understanding regarding the base shear and the interpretation of value of AH is clear to you, right? Now once the base shear is there, then 288 is the total value. However, the height of the building is 9 meters. So the next question comes is how the distribution of this base shear is going to be there along the height of the building. So next step is the vertical distribution of base shear, and for that again IS 1893 2016 is giving us a value or a formula that is given by Q is equal to VB into WIHI square divided by sigma WIHI square, right? So based on this formula of Q, you will be able to calculate the value of lateral load or the intensity of lateral load along the height of the building at each floor level, right? Wherever the mass is going to be there, at that level the inertia is going to be there, and wherever the inertia is going to be there, at that particular level this lateral load is going to be applied, right? So as a result of that, what you can see is that based on these three values, since we are having G+2 building, that is we are having 3 slabs, so mass is going to be at 3 levels, right? So as a result of that, we can say that I will get the value of Q as value of Q for 3 levels, that is Q1, Q2 and Q3, right? Where Q is the design lateral force according to the story, Wi is the weight at the individual floor level, Hi is the height of the building, and similarly Vb is the value of the base shear that we have calculated, right? So now when I substitute all these values, then I form this type of table where I am writing the floor level is 3 to 1. Why I am writing in the reverse manner? Because what is going to happen is that the total concentration of the base shear is going to be at the base level. Highest value of base shear is going to be at the base level, because what is our purpose is that the total lateral force from the top of the building should be transferred to the base level. So entire lateral load that is going to act is going to be transferred to beam, column and slab, and finally it is going to reach at the base level. So the highest value of base shear for any building is going to be available only at the base level, right? So what I am doing is that I am calculating from the reverse direction, that is 3, 2, 1 and 1, that is the roof level, first floor level and the ground floor level, right? Then I have the individual value of Wi that we have calculated, that is for roof we have the value of 960, for first floor 1120, for the ground floor also we have the 1120, and we know the height of the roof level, that is from the ground it is going to be 9 meters, first floor is 6 meters, ground floor is 3 meters. So we have WIHI. Then we have WIHI, that means we can calculate Wi into HI square, right? We do all that things and we do the summation of sigma I WIHI square because we need it in the next table that is going to be there. Then we apply the formula of Q is equal to VB into Wi into HI square divided by sigma Wi into HI square. So when you will do that, you will get these values of lateral loads at individual floor levels for all the 3 floors, that you can see 174, 90 and 22 is the values that you will get for individual floor level. And lastly, you have the shear force values that is given by Vi. So in that case, what is going to happen is that, as I said, that the total cumulative base shear is going to be acting at the base level. So each value that you are going to get as lateral load have to be summed up. So that is why the total shear force that is going to be acting at the roof level is going to be 174. Then at the first floor it is going to be 174 plus 90. And at the ground level it is going to be 174 plus 90 plus 22. So finally you will get this value of 288. So now again, just like in previous example, there was one check based on which you can see whether your calculation is correct or not. Similarly here also the check is that the final value of Vi that you will get at the ground level should match with the value of total base shear, that is Vb, that you have calculated earlier, that is 288 kilonewton. So we can say that here the value of Vb that we have calculated is 288. And if you look at the table also, then the final value that you are getting is 288 as Vi at the ground floor level. If these two things are matching, then you can say that your calculation is correct and the sum that you have done is correct, right? But again the condition is that based on the parameters you have selected. If the parameters are wrong, then these values may match, but your parameters considered are wrong, as a result of which your entire sum will be considered as wrong. Right? So keep that thing in mind. And finally, what we do is we draw the figures for the lateral load distribution along the height of the building and also the vertical distribution of base shear along the height of the building. So now you can see that both the things are inverse to each other. For example, in case of lateral load diagram, you are seeing that the maximum lateral load is going to be applied at the top floor level. And as you go downwards, that is, as you come towards the ground level, the value of lateral load is going to be decreased. And if you look at the base shear diagram, then you can see that the value of VI at the top floor level is going to be least and it is going to be maximum at the ground level. So this is also another check that in most of the cases what you will see when you are going to do the calculation as per the seismic coefficient method, that these two diagrams will be in reversible nature with each other. That is, the lateral load will be maximum at top level and base shear will be maximum at the bottom level. Right? So as you can see, I have indicated the values and based on that values I have prepared the block diagram for base shear also. Right? So after calculations and doing all the calculations, finally these two diagrams are to be drawn and these values are to be written along with their units. And if you are able to do these things, then your entire sum will be considered as correct. I hope the calculation of lateral force according to the seismic coefficient method is clear to you, and you might have understood the importance of selection of correct parameters and the understanding of IS 1893 for the calculation of this lateral load when it is going to be subjected to any type of structure. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. Stay tuned for the further lecture series. Thank you.